In today's video, we're going to discuss some common mistakes people make when they start the carnivore diet. What's shaking, bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I've been doing this carnivore diet for a year and a half consistently. I've been doing a low-carb, zero-carb diet on and off for years before that, since 2013-14, that winter. And then I switched to carnivore on and off since 2018. Now, I had a rough time sticking to zero carb because I was dealing with sugar and carbohydrate addiction. So it's a tough thing for people to deal with when they're trying to understand how they can keep a consistent eating schedule like carnivore going, because it's easy to give in to these tempting foods. I read just a couple weeks ago someone online saying that they had been strict carnivore for 2.5 years and then they relapsed. It can be a tough thing for people to start and maintain. So let's find some common mistakes that I've noticed people make and that I went through myself until I got consistent with carnivore. I would say one of the more common things people struggle with when they start this is because they're looking at it as a weight loss program. Now, this is something that is good for weight loss, but you want to try and rebuild your metabolism when you're eating like this. So this is all about rebuilding and refueling your body. The weight loss comes as a byproduct of that. One thing people do is they don't eat enough because they're trying to lose weight, and you have to feed yourself to lose weight. Yeah, calories count, and you don't want to eat too much because you'll find what works for you. But if you find you're stalling, one of the common problems might be that you're eating way too much or too little. A good average to start with is, if you're a woman, start with maybe 1.5 pounds and see how it goes to eat that much in a day. Now, if you're a guy, maybe about 2 pounds. Now, I have a ridiculously large appetite, which has gone down in recent months with this new challenge I've been doing. But I used to have 5 or 6 pounds of meat a day, and I was losing weight doing that. Now, it was lean ground beef mainly, so that was between 5,000 and 6,000 calories a day. Now, I've also gone for DEXA scans and bod pods so I could find out, and this is medical grade equipment, to find out what my lean mass and my resting metabolic rate was. And it was actually between 3,800 and 4,000 calories a day, and that's after my activity and that's after my exercise. I was still at a surplus and losing weight. Now, interestingly enough, my weight has sort of plateaued in the last 8 to 10 months, and it's been since I've been exercising. Now, part of that is because I put on lean mass, so my scale hasn't moved too much. Actually, I'm up just a few pounds because I switched to regular ground beef versus lean ground beef. And for a little while, I bumped up in weight, but it's steadily been going down. Now, I have sort of plateaued with that at about 325, knowing that about 5 pounds of that is lean mass. I was getting to the point where I was getting comfortable with 3 pounds of meat a day, 3 pounds of regular ground beef. So one thing you want to stick with as well is ground beef or red meat. Red meat is just more satiating. You'll find the longer you do a carnivore way of eating, you tend to lean and gravitate towards red meat because it keeps you full or satiated longer naturally. So you tend to eat less and less as the day goes on. Now, you don't want to eat such a little amount. You comfortably want to stay full. And eating too lean is one of the things that often screws people up. So if you're having too much chicken and turkey, that can really sabotage your results. I'm going to talk about it in an upcoming video, but I went through that years ago when I was doing a doctor-supervised low-carb, really a zero-carb way of eating. And I was eating way too lean, and I got some pretty bad side effects from doing that. And I still think I have some metabolism damage from when I did that. Now, I lost about 165 pounds at least doing that. And I was exhausted, cold, and tired all the time. And I was dealing with this mental fog, and I just did not feel good or right. Everyone was praising me and patting me on the back because I had lost so much weight, but I felt horrible doing it. It was not a healthy way to go. So on top of the fact I was eating too little with that doctor, I was getting virtually no fat. Most people find a sweet spot between the 70 and 80% fat when it comes to a carnivore diet. So something to stick with. I found I'm doing better on an 80% fat. So I find my sleep is better and my weight hasn't moved too much, but my sleep is better and I'm feeling better day to day. My energy is even better. Another problem people often have is fasting. Fasting is not a good thing to do, in my opinion, early on in the carnivore process. Maybe once you're about 5 or 6 months in and you're doing pretty good, then you can start fasting. The reason why I don't think fasting is a good way to go, unless you're just not hungry, that's different. But I'm talking about conscious fasting, where you're going a certain amount of hours without eating. The problem with that is, in the beginning, your hunger signals are kind of screwed up. And when you're fasting, one, you're not fueling your body. So that's not a good way to go, because the goal of this is to fuel your body. But the other problem is you're going to put yourself in a situation where you may give in to temptation because it's been a while since you've eaten. Then suddenly you start getting hungry and you're thinking, and you give into something that you shouldn't be eating. So fasting is not a good way to go, in my opinion, when you're starting a carnivore diet. Wait a few months. Wait till you become sort of comfortable and old hat with carnivore before you start messing around with eating windows. I would at most push breakfast back if you're going to do something like that, but I still don't really recommend that. I would at most push breakfast back maybe till like 10, 11, or 12 o'clock if you want to really insist on doing intermittent fasting. Another problem is a scale can really screw you up. The problem with a scale is you're getting inside your own head. And if you're doing this strictly for weight loss and then you haven't lost 20 pounds in the first week, it can be really discouraging. Or maybe you lost 20 pounds in the first week or two and then you plateaued. But you have to start paying attention to other things. It's not just about the scale. Are you putting on some lean mass? Think about that. Lean mass isn't just muscle. It's also bone tissue. It's also organ tissue. So there might be a transition that might last weeks or months while your body is healing itself, where you're putting on this healthy tissue and the scale's not reflecting much weight loss, because say you lost 15 pounds of fat, but over 6 months you put on 15 pounds of lean mass. So you can't tell unless you go for one of those bod pod or DEXA scans. So the scale can really get inside your head. I actually found I was using the scale more than I ever did in years when I actually put on a little bit of weight recently, because I switched to a regular ground beef instead of a lean ground beef. So I switched to a higher fat ground beef. Now, the problem with that was I was eating a lot of it. And once I portioned the sizes down, because I really couldn't handle eating that much anymore, the scale started to go down, and it went down about 15 pounds, but it has plateaued. But I'm okay with that because I trust the process. So the one thing you don't want to do is minimize your non-scale victories. So the scale's one component you need to pay attention to. You also got to pay attention to the inches on your waist. So inches on your legs, inches on your chest and back and arms. If you notice maybe you haven't lost much weight, but you're down 1, 2, or 3 sizes, that is something to be proud of. Pay more attention to inches, not pounds. I often say that in my videos. Inches, not pounds. Inches, not pounds. The pounds will go on their own. Some people it happens really fast. Some people it takes a little bit longer. My process right now has been taking quite a while. I've lost weight doing something like this before, really fast. But this time it's going rather slow, and I'm fine with that because I trust the process. Now, dairy is a double-edged sword. Dairy is something that can help you maintain a carnivore way of eating. So it's good to have in the beginning when you're doing carnivore, because it's going to help you to, when you're having cravings for junk food, cheese can often manage that craving a little bit, right? So can other foods, but cheese will just make life a little easier, dairy in general. But what happens is you have to watch your dairy because there's sugar hidden in dairy. Even in cheese, there's carbs in cheese. So you want to make sure you have foods that you can maintain a carnivore diet lifestyle on. And between bacon, pork, chicken, poultry of any kind, seafood, beef of any kind, cheese is something that you can add in there and just try not to make a meal of it. Have little snacks with it. The double-edged sword part of it is it'll slow your weight loss down. Now, the first 8 months I was doing this carnivore diet, I had dairy in there, but I was still losing weight and I was fine with that. Now, I would slow down with my weight loss on those months I had dairy, but I still was losing weight. Now, I don't have dairy in my diet. My weight's plateaued, as I said earlier, but I'm not too worried about that. When you're losing weight, you're going to plateau for time. Sometimes it can be weeks, sometimes it can be days, sometimes it can be months. Trust the system. I'm doing this because it makes me feel good. The weight loss is the side effect. Remember that. Another common mistake people make, and this is something that isn't an issue for some people, but other people it is sugar substitutes. Now, I deal with sugar and carbohydrate cravings, so I can't have a sugar substitute. I can't have a diet pop or soda or candy or gum or anything like that because there's sugar substitutes in lots of those foods. It's just going to trigger my sugar addiction and I'm going to go to junk food. So I just can't have those foods. It's as simple as that with me. So it's a tougher road in the beginning, but it's an easier road down the line. It's only tough for the first few weeks or couple months. After that, it's pretty manageable. You just have to get over that hurdle. And when you do, you're going to find you're in a really good spot. Another thing that people often don't talk about is having restaurant food or food that's prepared early, like you buy in a package or you're getting at a deli or a grocery store that's already cooked. Because the problem is they use lots of other ingredients in there and sometimes they sneak sugar in there. It just looks like a roast. You think everything's fine, or a chicken, but you find out that they actually put sugar in there. Sometimes it's part of the seasoning. So you got to watch that. Sometimes they sneak sugar in there and you just don't realize what you're eating and you're thinking, well, I've been having rotisserie chicken from the store. and it looks fine. It just tastes like chicken, but it turns out it's not really a good choice for you. So anything pre-packaged isn't a great way to go. That's more emergency food. Same goes with deli meats. If you have a lot of weight to lose, you might be able to have some deli meats in the beginning and still lose weight. But typically when you get that stuff, there's lots of artificial preservatives in those things. I make my own deli meat. It's basic ingredients and there's no preservatives other than a moderate amount of salt. It's just basic ingredients. When I get any of that food from a deli, I have gut rot the next day if I have too much of it. Now, for me, it's worth it. I'll go through the gut rot because I don't mind that, because I do like that food. And every now and then it's like a treat. I was probably doing something like that maybe once a month, and I would have it with some cheese, and I really enjoy it. Oh man, I lost one of my background lights. So anyway, as I was saying, I enjoy that and I don't mind the stall. I know when I have that cheese and that mortadella and that capicolo that's store-bought, and sometimes some sausage, I find what happens is I know my weight loss is going to plateau for a week or two. I'm fine with that. Every now and then it's a trade-off. You have to live. But I'm doing it in the boundaries and borders I've given myself, sticking to a carnivore diet where I don't have to live every day with carbohydrate and sugar addiction. Some people think it's a restricted way of eating. I don't really, because yes, it's physically a restricted way of eating, but the rest of your world opens up to you because you can do so much more when your joints aren't bothering you. You have better energy, so you can go for longer walks. You can do more with your exercising. You can have more freedom in your day-to-day life, and that counterbalances the restricted diet. So from my experience and what I've observed with other people's, these are things I highly recommend that you can pay attention to when you're starting a carnivore diet. You don't want to sabotage yourself. You want to give yourself every advantage possible when you're starting a way of eating like this. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Thanks for tuning in to the end. I really appreciate it. Now I put out 2 videos a week, every Thursday morning and every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I hope you found this useful. Take care.